Let the room be dark, and let this be the only thing you have to do for a while. Tonight, we begin reading the Bhagavad Gita, slowly, a few verses at a time, with a little explanation after each. And there is nothing to follow closely, and nothing to remember. We start at the very beginning with the first chapter, which is the strangest chapter in the whole book, because it contains no wisdom at all. No God has spoken yet. No lesson has been given. There is only a battlefield at dawn, 2 armies that are one family, and a man who is about to fall apart in front of everyone. The teaching comes later. First, we have to earn it, the way the warrior in the story does, by sitting inside the despair that the rest of the book was written to answer. A word about where we are, so the scene can settle around you. The plain is called Kurukshetra, a flat and sacred stretch of country in the north of India, named for an old ancestor of the very family that is about to tear itself apart on it. 2 sets of cousins have come here to end a long quarrel over a throne, and between them they have gathered most of the warriors of their world. The Gita opens not on the field itself, but in a distant palace, with a blind old king named Dhritarashtra, who cannot go to the battle and cannot bear to miss it. He has been given a narrator. His charioteer Sanjaya has been granted, the epic says, the power to see across any distance, and the whole of what follows is Sanjaya telling the blind king what is happening far away on the field of Dharma. The first verse is the blind king's only words in the entire Gita. He says to his charioteer, "Tell me, Sanjaya, what my sons and the sons of Pandu did when they gathered, eager to fight, on the holy field of Kurukshetra." That is all he asks, and then he falls silent for 700 verses and listens. Hear how much is already folded into that one sentence. He calls them my sons and the sons of Pandu, dividing the family in the very breath that names it, mine against his brothers. He calls the killing ground a holy field. And the old scholars noticed that his first word in the original is Dharma, the field of Dharma, of duty and of right. The book opens on the word it will spend the rest of its length trying to define. Sanjaya begins to answer, and he begins not with the good cousins, but with the one who started the war. Seeing the army of the Pandavas drawn up for battle, he says, Prince Duryodhana went to his teacher Drona and spoke. Notice the small thing the verse is showing you. At the most dangerous moment of his life, the prince does not go to a general or a god. He goes to his old school teacher, the Brahmin who trained him and his cousins together in the use of weapons when they were boys. The man he is about to fight beside is the man who taught him to fight, and the man across the field is that same teacher's favorite student. Everyone on this plain learned war from everyone else. That is the wound the whole chapter presses on. Then Duryodhana does a nervous thing. He starts counting the enemy out loud. "Look at this great army of the sons of Pandu," he tells his teacher, arrayed by your own gifted pupil. And he begins naming their champions one by one. There is Yuyudhana and Virata and Drupada, the great chariot warrior. There is Dhrishtakatu and Chekitana and the brave king of Kashi. There is Purujit and Kuntibhoja and Shaibya, the bull among men, and the valiant Yudamanyu, and the strong Uttamaujas, and the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. Every one of them, he admits, a master of his great war chariot. A man who was sure of winning, would not need to recite the strength of the other side. The naming is a list of his fears in disguise, spoken aloud as if saying them might shrink them. To steady himself, he counts his own side too. For our part, he tells Drona, learn who is distinguished among us, the leaders of my army, and I will name them so you know them well. There is yourself, my teacher, and Bhishma the grandfather, and Karna, and Kripa the winner of battles, and Ashvathama, and Vikarna, and the son of Somadatta, and many other brave men who have given up their lives for my sake, armed with many kinds of weapons, all of them skilled in war. Our strength, he says, is unlimited, guarded by Bhishma, while theirs is small, guarded by Bhima. The boast has a crack running through it, because the very next thing out of his mouth is an order born of worry. Therefore, Duryodhana says, let all of you, standing each in your proper place, guard Bhishma above everything. There it is, the fear under the arithmetic. A man certain of his unlimited army does not end his speech by telling everyone to protect one old man. The whole Kaurava cause leans on the grandfather, and the prince knows it, and the chapter lets us hear him know it. This is the Gita being honest about how the powerful feel on the morning of a fight they chose. The confidence is loud, and the worry is louder, and the two of them are coming out of the same mouth in the same breath, which is a very human way to stand at the edge of something you cannot take back. Now the sound begins. To lift his grandson's spirits, the old grandfather Bhishma roars like a lion and blows his conch shell, and the noise of it gives Duryodhana a moment of joy. Then, all at once, the whole Kaurava side answers, conches and kettle drums and tabors and trumpets and horns, until the din becomes a single wall of sound rolling across the plain. The Gita is slowing down here on purpose. A lesser poem would rush to the fighting. This one stops to listen, because the sound is about to be answered from the other side of the field. And the answer is one of the most loved passages in the book. A long, slow naming of the conch shells of the heroes, each by its own name, like a roll of thunder given in separate voices. On the other side, in a great chariot yoked to white horses, stand Krishna and Arjuna, and they raise their heavenly conches. Krishna blows the one named Panchajanya, which the old translations say was carved from a giant's bone. Arjuna blows Devadatta, the gift of the gods. Bhima, the doer of fearful deeds, blows his huge conch called Poundra. The eldest brother, Yudhishthira, blows the one named Eternal Victory. The twins, Nakula and Sahadeva, blow the sweet-sounding and the jewel blossom. The king of Kashi and Shikhandi and Drishtadyumna and Virata and the unconquered Satyaki and Drupada and the sons of Draupadi and the strong-armed son of Subhadra. All of them, one after another, blow their conches until the sound is no longer many sounds, but one. That tremendous noise, the verse says, echoing through sky and earth, tore the hearts of Dhritarashtra's sons. Stay a moment with that small turn, because it is the chapter quietly choosing a side without raising its voice. The same blast of sound is triumph for one army and dread for the other, and the poem reports the dread. It tells the blind king gently that his sons heard the conches of the cousins they had wronged and felt the courage drain out of them. No one has been hurt yet. Not an arrow has flown. And already the chapter is teaching its first lesson, without seeming to teach anything, that a war is lost and won inside people long before it is lost and won on the ground. Then, when the bows are raised and the missiles are about to fly, Arjuna lifts his own great bow, and he speaks to Krishna, who is holding the reins of his chariot. His banner carries the image of Hanuman, the monkey god, and he calls Krishna by a tender old name, the Lord of the senses. "Place my chariot," he says, "in the middle ground between the two arms, so that I may look at these men standing here, eager for battle, and see with whom I must fight in this coming work of war." It sounds at first like an ordinary request, a soldier wanting to measure the enemy before the killing starts. Krishna says nothing back. He does it without a word, and that silence and that obedience are about to undo Arjuna completely. Krishna drives the great chariot forward and halts it in the open ground between the two armies, in front of Bhishma and Drona and all the kings of the earth. And he says only this, 4 quiet words that land like a stone in still water. "Behold, Arjuna, these Kurus gathered together." Hear what Krishna does and does not do. He does not say, "Behold the enemy." He does not say, "Behold the wicked, or the doomed, or the men who wronged you." He says, "Behold your family, the Kurus, your own people, assembled." With one word, he turns a battlefield back into a family reunion, and he places his friend in the exact center of it, between the two halves of his own blood, and lets him look. And there, standing in both armies, Arjuna sees them. He sees fathers and grandfathers, the verse says, and teachers, uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, and comrades too, fathers-in-law and dear friends, ranged on the one side and on the other. The poem slows almost to a stop here and lists the kinds of love a person carries, one relation at a time, the way you might run a thumb along a string of beads. Each name on that list is someone who taught him, or played with him, or blessed him as a child, and each of them is now standing in range of his arrows. Seeing all his kinsmen arrayed against each other, the text says, "Arjuna was filled with deep pity, and, sorrowing, he began to speak." This is the hinge of the whole chapter, so let it rest a moment in the dark. Everything before it was preparation. The armies, the boasting, the conches, the slow drive into the middle ground. All of it existed to bring one good man to the one place where he could see clearly what war asks of him. Krishna could have left him in the line, among the banners and the noise, where an enemy stays safely faceless. Instead, he drove him out to the center and turned the enemy back into family. What breaks in Arjuna now has nothing of cowardice in it. It is a heart working correctly, seeing the truth of the thing and refusing to look away from it. And the next verses are, that heart coming apart in plain sight. Listen to how the Gita describes a breakdown, because it is unhurried and exact, almost like a physician taking notes. "Krishna," says Arjuna, "when I see my own kinsmen here, come together wanting to fight, my limbs give way, my mouth goes dry. A trembling comes over my body, and my hair stands on end. The great boar Gandhava slips from my hand, and my skin burns all over. I cannot stand steady, and my mind seems to wander and reel." Notice that the despair arrives in the body first, before a single argument is made. The hands fail, the mouth dries, the famous bow falls. The most dangerous archer alive is shaking like a man with a fever, and no one has touched him. His body has understood something his reasons are only now catching up to. "I see omens of evil," Arjuna goes on, "and I can foresee nothing good in killing my own kindred in battle. I long not for victory, Krishna, nor for kingship, nor for pleasures. What is a kingdom to us, he says? What are its joys, or life itself, when the very men for whose sake we would want a kingdom? Our teachers, fathers, sons, and grandfathers are standing here in front of us, ready to give up their lives and their wealth. The cry underneath the words is simple and ancient. He is asking what victory is even for, if winning it means destroying the people you wanted to share the winning with. A throne surrounded by the graves of your family is a punishment that happens to come with a crown. Now Arjuna does something we should respect, even half asleep. He does more than feel that the war is wrong. He tries to reason it through, and his reasons deserve a hearing. I do not wish to kill these men, he says, even if they kill me, not for the lordship of all three worlds, let alone for the earth. What joy could be ours, Krishna, after killing our own kinsmen? Even if they, with minds blinded by greed, see no fault in the ruin of a family, and no crime in the betrayal of friends. Why should not we, who do see the evil clearly, have the wisdom to turn back from this sin? It is a real argument. They may be too far gone to see what they are doing. We who still see clearly carry the duty that seeing brings. Then his argument widens into something larger than himself, into a whole vision of how a society comes undone. When a family is destroyed, he says, its ancient ways and duties perish with it. And when those ways are gone, lawlessness overtakes the whole house. The order of generations breaks. The rights go untended, and the loss runs downward through the women and the children and the wider community, like water through a broken dam, until even the ancestors fall from their place of peace, deprived of the simple offerings the living owe the dead. Whatever you make of the old picture of caste and right behind his words, hold on to the thing underneath them. He is saying that some victories quietly unmake the very world that was supposed to enjoy them. Kill the family to win the throne, and you have killed the reason the throne was worth wanting. There is one more turn in his reasoning, and it is the saddest, because he turns the blame on himself and his own side. Alas, he says, we have set our hearts on committing a great sin, ready to kill our own kin out of greed for the pleasures of a kingdom. He does not say the enemy has forced this. He says we are about to do a terrible thing for a small and selfish reason, and he counts himself among the guilty. A lesser man in his place would be listing the crimes of the other side. Arjuna, in the depth of his despair, reaches instead for honesty about his own. Even collapsing, even unable to lift his bow, he will not lie to himself about why they all came here. That honesty is the thing Krishna will have to work with. And then comes the last line, the one the whole chapter has been walking toward. Better by far, Arjuna says, if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me in the battle while I stood unresisting and unarmed. He would rather be killed than kill. He would rather lay down his defense and let the war pass through him than raise his hand against the people he loves. Having said it, the text closes the scene with great quietness. Speaking thus in the middle of the battlefield, Sanjaya tells the blind king, Arjuna sank down upon the seat of his chariot and let fall his bow and arrows, his mind overcome with grief. That is the whole of the first chapter. A man sat down in the middle of a war and would not fight, and the book holds him there in the open ground without rushing to fix him. The old tradition gave this chapter a name that turns the breakdown into something almost holy. It called it the Yoga of Arjuna's despair, as though sorrow this honest were itself a kind of discipline, a doorway rather than a dead end. Every teaching that the Gita is famous for, the deathless soul, action without grasping, the calm mind like a steady flame, all of it is still ahead of us, and none of it would mean anything if this chapter had been skipped. The answer is only worth as much as the question, and tonight we have let the question stand. We will leave him there for tonight, sitting in his chariot with his bow at his feet. And there is a strange comfort in that, because it means the wisest book in the tradition begins by taking despair completely seriously before it says a single soothing word. When we return, Krishna finally speaks, and the second chapter is where the teaching begins, the soul that is never born and never dies, and the first of the answers. None of that is needed now. For now there is only the dark, the quiet field, the lowered bow, and the long night ahead, with nothing it needs you to do. Rest. The rest of the song will keep until you want it again.